So hello and welcome, I'm Frederick Dunn and this is The Way to Bee. What we're looking at here is a very interesting event with honeybees. It is May of 2025, specifically the 10th of May at this part of the video. And the bees are swarming, but here's the interesting part. These bees are moving in on their own. This is my observation hive building. And my grandson came in to let me know that there was a swarm outside. And where was it coming from? Through the woods to the northeast of us, headed this way. Now the fun part is this observation hive was not properly cleaned out after a dead out this winter. So I've been behind and I did not expect anything to move into it. Why? Because it's just an observation hive. It's in 4 levels. Triple mediums on each level, so we're only talking about 12 frames medium, and the design is for observation, of course, and that's the purpose of this building. So I slowed it down. As you might have guessed already, this video is 32 minutes long, so it's not a fast video. It's for those who want to sit around and stare at things and listen to bees. Maybe you don't have bees of your own, so this is going to help you out. This time of year, in the northeastern part of the United States, northwestern part of the state of Pennsylvania, bees are swarming. Traditionally, first couple of weeks of May, those are our big swarm weeks here. And this one is no surprise except for the fact that this is the easiest possible way to get honeybees. Why do I say that? Well, because normally, if you're a beekeeper, you set out swarm traps and you put them up 12 feet high and you put them at the edge of woods where trees meet a clearing and southern facing, southeast facing, 150 yards from the apiary. But I've abandoned that. And here's why. If I have a dead out, that means I've got a cavity that was previously occupied by honeybees. That means it smells right. That also means the apartment is furnished. So it's very appealing to bees. Now, if you're out there and you see a swarm on a tree or it's on your mailbox or the side of your house this time of year, please don't be alarmed, because what's happening is a colony of bees that made it through winter is reproducing. That means they pushed out their old queen and they're making replacement queens. So the colony that is left behind is just fine and dandy, and the colony that flew out with the queen is also going to be fine if they can find a suitable space to occupy. So my grandson was over here the past few days, and I was showing him that scouts were checking out this observation hive. And what do they do when they check it out? Well, they go through the entrance and they walk off all the interior surfaces and they're taking measurements. Those scouts fly back to what is probably a bivouac swarm. What is a bivouac swarm? Well, that means that when the bees flew out of the cavity that they survived winter in, they paused somewhere on a tree branch or a fence row, something like that. And while they're bivouacked or temporarily located, exposed by the way, the scouts are out looking for a suitable cavity that will handle the number of bees that are in their swarm. And when they find it, they fly back to that bivouac location and they do little waggle dances on the surface of it. So if you're looking at a cluster of bees somewhere, I highly recommend you report it to a beekeeper. You go to a website called beeswarmed.org, beeswarmed.org, and you report the swarm there. And then a beekeeper will respond and come and get them, and then hive them up. But you know what? That sounds like work, doesn't it? So what you can also do, if you happen to already be a beekeeper and you happen to have frames of previously used comb for brood, then it smells good. So if you have a suitable space that seems safe to the bees, to the scouts, and you also have the smells of a previously occupied space by bees, then it's more likely that they will just move in. This has happened so often where I live that I've stopped putting out swarm traps at all. So what happened to the bees that lived here before? Well, they didn't make it through winter. We had a really cold extended winter, and these are observation hives, which means they're pretty darn small. It also means they have a lot of surface area, so they have viewing glass on the sides of them. And because of that, and it wasn't heavily insulated, I'm going to change my ways this coming winter because I think our winters are longer and colder for some reason. If we had better insulated them, the colony may have survived. But let's move on past that. We know that they died from freezing, from being chilled and too small a cluster of bees in the wintertime to handle that. One of the problems with observation hives too is that they swarm a lot. So, the previous residents in this observation hive also swarmed out at the end of the year last year, which presents challenges. For those of you who don't know, when they swarm, it means they've made new queens, usually plural. So those are queen cells that are inside the hive. When those new queens emerge, what do? The first one out goes around and tries to kill off the other competing queens. But we need things for them to survive because a queen that comes out is not ready to lay eggs. She cannot sustain a colony of bees. So what does she have to do? She has to fly out of the hive, and if this happens at the end of the year, there are more predators on the wing. Birds, insects, everything wants to get a bee. So the queen has a lot of challenges ahead of her, but she has to fly out and away from the hive that she came from. She has to get mated with drones in what's known as a drone congregation area, and then she has to come back through that gauntlet of predators that want to eat her, including dragonflies, which at the end of the year are very high in number. So once she gets back, that's when, again, of course, she has to start producing new brood that will sustain the colony through winter. I highly suspect that we had some unmated queens this year because winter came early and it came in strong. We even had a blizzard, by the way. So let's move on past that. What are we looking at here? This is a lot of fun because this is hands-off beekeeping. This is so easy. Because what's my job? My job is to make a video so I can share it with you, so we can watch what happens here at this entrance. Because this tells us that the swarm was on the move and that they've decided that this observation hive, one of 3 in this building, is suitable for them to live in. Now, I disagree with them, but who am I anyway? The insects make the decision, and they are all collected together by the pheromone of their queen that is flying with them. So they are going to move into this entrance, but you know who can make a decision that could change everything? The queen herself. The scouts have decided this is the place. The workers have decided that this is the place. But if the queen doesn't move in, you will not have residents. Now the good news about this is they've chosen this themselves. This isn't a beekeeper picking up a bunch of bees, stuffing them in a box and saying stay, and hoping that they stick around. These are bees that have decided on their own that this is where they want to be. That's a great feeling. Because we can just stand out here. My grandson's here also. I've asked him to be quiet while we watch the bees so we can record them. And here I am, of course, talking over everything. There are few things more exciting than standing in the middle of a swarm of bees. They are everywhere. The air is alive with them. How fast is the swarm moving across the landscape? Well, about 6 miles an hour on average. And you could actually jog along with them, assuming they don't cut over fences and rivers and ponds and lakes and things like that. So these came through the woods. Let's watch them going into the hive because it's a lot of fun. Here we are full speed. And by the way, what's interesting about this too is this isn't even half of the bees that are on the wing. These are just the first to arrive. So it's a lot of fun that we could be here at the moment that the swarm arrives and starts to move in. Now if we were really keen-eyed, we would get to see the queen going in. But what's interesting is the movement of the bees on the side of this building, which by the way faces to the south. They start to move. If you kind of squint your eyes and look at the mass of bees, you can see that there is a counterclockwise movement of the thousands of bees that are assembling on this building. And they're going into the entrance. But until the queen goes in that entrance, things are not finalized. In other words, she gets final approval on the residence that they hope to occupy. And if they depart the next day, then that's called an abscond. You could have an empty hive, but this is highly unlikely. Absconds can happen when the beekeeper decided what box to put them in, and then the bees reject that box for one reason or another, and then within a day or two they're gone to another location. Every time they change locations, they're using up more and more of their resources. So it's very important that they follow their lead, that they move into a space that's suitable, and that they do it once, because what are they bringing with them? They're bringing all the resources they need to sustain themselves. They've got the queen. She's the source of all eggs. They've also loaded up on honey, so the workers here have their honey crops full because they're prepared to do what? To sustain themselves on the wing, to survive a bivouac location when, just like today, rain may show up, and then to move in, and if they had a space that had no honeycomb in it, which is the structure that they need to put all of their resources in, they would then need to build new honeycomb, and they need honey to do it, because that's how they produce beeswax. All the workers are female, and you may see some drones, which are the males, right along with this group. Now you can see that they've decided they're going in. That's great news. It's entertaining to watch. And it's also, again, there's no easier way to get bees to replace anything that you might have lost during the winter than to have them move in on their own. This is a done deal. We don't have to do anything to control them here. Also, the hive inside was not prepared, so it's an observation hive that has dirty plexiglass windows on it, because my next step was, of course, to clean the interior of this hive and clean the windows off for observation. It never occurred to me that bees would just show up and move in on their own. So we have a grubby hive. The good news is, coming up later this year, I'm installing a much larger observation hive, one that I spec'd out for myself, that has actual tempered glass on it, and it was made by Horizontal Bees. Ricky Rourke did it for me, and we're going to be installing that later in the year. Now, I was going to put it right where this one is, but I had to change my plans because the bees decided that this is just too popular a place to move in. So now this building will have 4 observation hives this year. So what are the bees doing while they're all collecting on the surface out here? Well, they're verifying that they all belong together, but here's the fun part. Do you know that other honeybees that are just flying by at this time, other foragers from other colonies, are also joining the fun? That they fly through these pheromone streams and they just glom onto it? So you can end up with a larger population of honeybees inside the hive that they move into than those that actually departed the parent hive space, right? So what I'm saying is, other bees fly through the pheromone stream of a swarm on the wing, and they can just likely join up. So you can get bees that did not belong to this group, and as long as they've got resources, and of course foragers have resources, they can move in and join them. They're not rejected. So it's fun to see. Now you might be wondering, how does the parent colony that these came from survive without all these workers? How many of them leave? Well, those who count bees have told us that up to 70% of the population can leave a parent colony with a prime swarm like this. And that's actually good, because they need those numbers to get started with a new colony. More foragers, more resources, better building experience in the new space. Because remember, they also have to be equipped to move into a space that has no honeycomb in it. They just have the advantage here of having a colony, a hive space that's full of honeycomb. Now look at the way they're all moving into the entrance here. They're all piling in from the left. Why aren't they just piling in from every direction? I don't know. This made me think a little bit about like Mecca, where you just see thousands moving in a big circle. So when you pan back from this, and I will in a minute, you get to see them all moving counterclockwise and they're just following one another's pheromone, and they're cycling the queen's pheromone, and it's called Nasonoff, that they're also lifting their abdomens and keeping themselves together. And look at the numbers now compared to what initially landed on the side of the building. Thousands and thousands of bees. So a lot of people want to know, well, exactly how many bees are moving in there. We don't know. This could be 20,000 bees. I don't know. But if you squint your eyes and look at this image, you can see the overall counterclockwise movement, like a slow wave or stream or river of insects gradually moving in. Now, another thing I want you to think about, what if I wasn't home? What if I didn't know that this was going on? Look at all this drama that happens midday. In fact, this happens most likely between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on nice warm days, particularly after we've had rain events or cool days. If it's warm after a storm, expect a swarm. So then we come out here, and if it had been at the end of the day, I would just see normal entrance activity, although it would be in a hive that I would have thought was unoccupied, but I have an auto-installing swarm of honeybees. This is not the only one that's done this year. I have 3 other beehives in my apiary that are suddenly, magically occupied with a colony of bees. So what do you do to make sure that you have prime real estate for bees that want to move into it? If you've got a dead out from winter, you need to clean it carefully. Get every dead bee out of it. Blow off all the frames. Reduce the space. Make it suitable. And we know through Dr. Thomas Seeley's excellent book, The Honeybee Democracy, that they like to have about a 10-gallon space. So that means you don't want to put out 3 or 4 or 2 even deep boxes of brood frames for your bees. You want to reduce it to just 1 deep box. Put a nice insulated cover on that. Close off all the entrances except for one at the landing board where they can go in. Just like this hive right here that has a single entrance to the south. Then your goal is, once you have a cleaned up space like that, you want scouts to show up. Now, what's the difference between scouts and robbers? I had this talk with my grandson. Because it was an observation hive, we could also see what they're doing inside, pacing things off. And I asked him what they're doing. He didn't really know. He thought they might be robbing, but then again, they weren't eating anything. So they weren't sampling the honey that was left over, and there is some in here. They weren't eating anything. And at one point, there was as many as 20 scout bees all walking the interior surfaces. So they just walked them over and over. In fact, some of them stayed the night, and others started to guard the entrance. And even before this colony of bees moved in, they started house cleaning. That's right. Even before the colony moved in, some of the scouts were picking up dead bees and detritus on the bottom of the hive space and dropping it out the front entrance, which I found very interesting. Now again, squint your eyes and look at this. You can see them condensing on that opening. They're just moving in, just kind of pouring into it. This is very interesting to me anyway. I hope it is to you. Look at their abdomens here at the entrance. If you stood downwind of this, you could smell lemongrass. That's what it smells like to us because, you know, our olfactory senses aren't that fancy. But it's Nasonoff and it smells like lemongrass. So they are collecting as many bees from the area as they can. It also helps them maintain unity of the swarm that left with them. They want as many of those as they can to arrive at the proper location. And now that they're all here, remember what I said, that if it's an apiary with a lot of other bees around, they just get volunteers all the time. And I've often seen bees move into a hive and their numbers just continue to increase. What's it look like inside? Well, this is what it looks like. It's hive number 31. And they were dead, you know. It was empty. I didn't clean it. In fact, I was going to leave this open because it was ready for cleaning, and as an afterthought, I closed up the glass windows just in case, because I didn't want wasps and things. You'll see yellow jackets cruising around this time of year. Those are queens looking to start new colonies. This entire room hums. The sound of bees is so interesting. But you can see this colony, look how small it is. And there's my other hive in the corner. I moved away from that too quick. But you can see there's some capped honey. So it's raining right now. How great is that? Today's May 13th. So it's raining, it's a little cooler today, and they don't have a thing to worry about. But I noticed when I walked out, even though it's raining, and I'll show that at the end of this video, that they're already bringing in pollen. They're ready to go. The queen needs a couple of days because she has to get her nutrition back up. The queen, before she flies with these bees here, when they go to a new location, she's been pushed around by the nurse bees. They decided that she needs to go. The first hint is, of course, they have a nursery of replacement queens. So they've got those queen cells built up, they're swarm cells. They've been feeding them really well, and before they get capped, or even at the point of capping, that's when they drive off the queen. So she's been exercised. They leaned out her nutrition. And then before she flies, she becomes light enough to fly. Because a fully engaged laying queen would zip out the front of the landing board of the original hive and just plop on the ground. You'd get maybe 10 feet and be on the ground again. And that's because she's too heavy. So of course, when she arrives at the new location, she's lighter now, and she's a little bit malnourished. Now that she's here, now that they have the final location, they will be boosting her nutrition and getting her right back into egg laying as quickly as possible, and that generally happens on the second or third day after she moves in. So we should be able to see this queen laying on the face frames, and that means the frames that we can see the surface of in the observation hive, because remember, these are triples. Triple frames are very good for the bees, not great for the observer. That's why we have so many observation hives in the building, because eventually one of them is going to have the queen on the outside surface. You're going to be able to see her. You can see her laying eggs. You can see the attendees, the retinue around the queen, following her everywhere, making sure that she's clean, protected, nourished, and they even carry away her waste. So a queen does not, she does not fly out to go to the bathroom the way the worker bees do. Instead, she's attended to by a retinue of nurse bees that are very young, that are full of nutrition for her, and they carry away her waste for her. So it's all very interesting. This is going to be fun to follow. I do like to start out colonies this time of year in observation hives so we can see them grow and develop. We have 2 other observation hives that are fully engaged in this building. So we're doing some things in there. We're watching them fill in, cut comb, and things like that. What do I expect this colony to do? Well, look at the numbers. Look how many there are. I suspect, as has been the case in years past, that their population is going to build up fast. They are going to produce queen cells, and they are going to send the exact same old queen out again with another swarm. Now, if I have successfully set up my tree branches nearby and have the right pheromones on them, once this group leaves again later on down the line, they'll collect or bivouac again on a branch in my own apiary, and then I'll be able to collect them. And I have choices to make. I can take the swarm that once again comes out of this hive, and I can hive them up and make another colony, which is their intent. That's why they're reproducing on scale as a superorganism. Or I can find the queen once they swarm. If it's late in the year, I can remove her from the bivouac location. And then with the absence of the queen's pheromone to bind them, where do they go? Right back to the hive they left. Which is good news, but at the end of the year, as I talked about last year, I feel like we lost some queens because they didn't get that late season mating, and so we had virgin queens inside hives. They could not reproduce. All you end up with then at the end of the year when you do your autopsy of your hive, you find a bunch of drones. because a queen that's unmated and even workers could later lay eggs that develop into drones. Drones are male bees. All they can do is mate with a queen if they find one from another colony, and if they don't, then you've got a dead out. They just dwindle until the end of the year, and then you've got to clean them out in the spring. So my advice to you, if you're a beekeeper watching this, make sure to clean out your dead outs. I recommend not storing them all in your garage or your shed or your barn or whatever. Clean them up, reduce them to a single entrance in a single box. During high swarm season, just have them available. You don't have to put them at the top of a ladder or way up on some tree branch with a block and tackle system or something really elaborate. You can actually use the brood box that would be their final hive and use that as your swarm lure and let them go in. Now, I also collect my own swarms when I get them on a branch. I don't rely on them to move in on their own, although it does happen a lot. If I catch them in a butterfly net, I just bring them over to the hive I want them to occupy. Now, when you do that, the bees again are volunteering to go into the space because they didn't dump any bees into it. We just put the butterfly net on the landing board in direct contact with the entrance there. And if the bees go in and start to check the space out and they like it, the rest of the colony is going to move in. And there again, they hive themselves. As far as they know, they chose it, even though you shook them off of a branch into a butterfly net or some kind of tote, and then you went over and parked it right in front of the thing you wanted them to occupy. Once they occupy it, you're good. You don't have to worry. And you can sit there and watch. I highly recommend you spend the afternoon staring at bees, making up their mind whether or not to go into the space you've provided, and then see if the queen herself goes in, because once she does, you make a note. I saw the queen, she went in, and all the rest of them went in. And then you make a note of the date that they occupied that space. Now, if they reject the hive that you're trying to get them to go into, there's a reason. Maybe the brood comb is so old that it has accumulated a lot of pesticide residue. Maybe it doesn't smell right. Maybe there's something wrong with the brood frames in an old hive that you have. Could be time to swap those out. I swap them out on the 5th year. So old, dark brood comb that's 5 or more years old, it gets the boot here. And we get that out of there. And you'll find out that often when you make those changes and you get the dead bees out and you make it not smell like a dead hive, then you'll find that they're quicker to go in and check it out. Scouts will check it out and you can get approval. Now let's say that they're a little bit stubborn and you know full well everything is clean, or it's a brand new hive with brand new frames in it, and they are heavy wax foundation frames if that's what you have. Always have. If you've got plastic foundation, please make sure that you've got a thick coat of beeswax on it. That is very appealing to the bees for the same reason that this hive is appealing to these bees. It smells right. Look at this entrance now, by the way. If you came home now, you would never have seen all that fantastic activity of them moving in. So anyway, if you've got a hive that's full of brand new gear and it doesn't smell like it's previously occupied, you get something called Swarm Commander. Look it up. It's a very sophisticated pheromone lure that imitates bees nazzing off, and you can get them to go in. So here we are today, May the 13th. It is 75 degrees Fahrenheit inside the building. Listen how calm and quiet everything is. But what I want you to see, and we're going to open this up, look at the population of bees in here. This is too many bees this early in the year. So there again, these frames are mediums, they're in triples, and they are 4 high. So we have 12 frames. They're already resources. They have, cells that they can clean out so they can go straight into laying. On the outside of the entrance there, we saw them bringing in pollen already, and it's raining right now. So this is going to be a swarm generator. That's not going to bother me a lot. I do have a problem with this colony because of the visibility through the plexiglass. So I want to remind you that I did produce a video recently on how to clean your plexiglass. I highly recommend you watch it because Steam and water is all you need. It's the best. If you even wipe down plexiglass with isopropanol, it can cause crazing and cracking and little surface disruptions that make it tougher to see what's going on. So I had written this colony off. I was going to pull all the frames out. There's a lot of foundationless comb in here as well. I wanted to cut that out and get rid of it. But the bees made their decision. Who am I to argue with that? Just let them move in. And you can see the white stuff in there. You know what that is? That is leftover sugar from the previous colony. So, and guess what else? You would think they would eat that. But no, as of today, they're cleaning it out. So, this is today. Let's see what it looks like now. Here's what the entrance looks like, and you can see pollen coming in on their legs, even in the rain. It's a light rain, of course, misty rain. And this is what's going on inside the hive. Now, it looks like they're kind of cleaning up the glass a little bit. I mean, that's helpful. Look at the number of bees covering the comb in here. There's a lot. And they're cleaning up what I should have cleaned up for them, but I guess they demonstrated that it's okay. And pretty soon we're going to see this space is brooding up, and you're going to see brood on the outside or the face frames here. And this is the other side. So this is what we call the west side of the hive. Wall-to-wall bees, and remember they're in triplets. That means that you've got 4 surfaces on each level that we can't see. Look how calm they are, look how settled they are. The queen is in there, and eventually she'll be laying eggs on the outside comb, and then you'll be able to watch that. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I'm sorry the video was so long, but I hope you benefited from some of the information. Observation hives are great. Clean up your gear, put it out there, attract a swarm with the hive that you hope to have them live in for the rest of the year. Thanks for watching.